very early in my film career. In fact, the very first film I ever made. Before that, I played in Shakespeare sort of jolly fishermen and very nice soldiers and things like that. And then Tony Richardson, the great film and theatre director, cast me in a film called Tom Jones. Write it down. Go and see, get Tom Jones on your television sets. It's the most glorious, funny, ridiculous, lovely 18th century English romp. And it's one of the few films I would say which is a true classic. A true classic. I promise you, Tom Jones, don't forget the name, look it up and watch it. Only take you an hour and a quarter, and I know you'll go, oh, I'm glad Julian asked me to watch this, because it's such fun. Starring Albert Finney, who you may know, the elderly actor like me, and a lot of the great big English actors of that time. And that was my first movie, which was tremendously exciting.
Wow.
Did you ask me what I wanted to do? No.
I want to know why you gravitated towards villains. Why did you gravitate towards villains in movies?
Yeah, well, that started me off. And people started to cast me as villains, and I was quite happy to do so. And when I was a young actor, the television was full of things called series, like The Avengers, The Saint, The Persuaders, Randall and Hopkirk, things like that. Television was littered with them, and that was our mainstay of income at that time, we young actors. And I always played the villain, and it got to the point where I would say to the producer, don't cast me in this, because everybody will know that I did it. But it really did get ridiculous. And then of course I got the wonderful one when I got much older, of the films which we've mentioned now. Fortunately now in the theatre I'm beginning to play more nice granddads and nice people, which is quite comforting in my old age. Because I'm a jolly good granddad.
Well, you did do a good guy once. He was really good in the movie Ivanhoe from 1980.
I played Richard III first, yes.
You played Richard the Lionheart, Richard the First. That was the first time I ever saw you or anything. I thought that was a great performance. It's a great movie, and you guys look it up. It's 1980 or 81. It's called Ivanhoe, and it's...
I think it's 1893, I think.
18.
Yeah, that Richard the Lionheart, it was the second time I played him. I played him in an episode of Doctor Who in the very, very first... You've seen it? Well, you've seen 3 episodes of it. It was the very, very first series with William Hartnell. It was the first Doctor Who. And they had this series set in the East during the Crusades, and I played Richard I in that. And then many years later, in the 80s, the same director was making Ivanhoe, and he asked me to play Richard I again, which was a tremendous compliment and very great fun, and a lovely, lovely part to play, mostly on a horse, very good.
Yeah, and then Sam Neill from Jurassic Park played Brian Gubea. And then Sam Neill from Jurassic Park.
Sam Neill was in
that.
Yeah.
And John Rhys Davis, who played Sala in Indiana Jones. He plays a nobleman. And
James Mason was in it.
James Mason, that was a great movie.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I just liked it. But anyway, so Nick, we have a gentleman in the front with a question.
Can you hear me all right?
There's so
much noise going on.
Hi, I'm Veronica Bruno. I'm
Hello.
a writer for Fansided, and I have not only seen Tom Jones, I have read the book.
The original book.
The original book, which actually, if you get a chance to check it out, both are amazing.
It is a wonderful film, isn't it?
It is.
It's just
It's a lot of fun. It's way better than you think it's going to be. It's an amazing film.
yeah, and it has a very famous scene in it, which was the first time anything like this had ever been done, which was a really sexy eating scene. A man and a woman opposite each other at a table, very hungry, not only for food.
Yeah.
And it is a classic of its kind. And it's been repeated in several other films, that idea. That idea in When Harry Met Sally, is it? With the famous scene? I'll have what she's having. That came from that. That came from that idea. Eating.
It's hilarious, actually. And I have a question.
Yeah.
In Game of Thrones, it's really a shame that the scene between you and Tywin, where it shows what you're really like, wasn't in the show. And I get why they didn't include it, but isn't it? What's your thought on that? It's such a shame because it's a brilliant scene.
Thank you. A little story about this, I'm afraid. We got to the end of Series 6, Series 5, and I went to the producer and said, I wasn't going to tell you this, but you brought it up now. Producers and said, I don't want to do the next series. And they said, you've got to do the next series. I said, I don't. I said, it's a piddly little part. And frankly, I'm completely fed up with being ticked off by Cersei and being put down all the time. This is a much more dignified man than that. I'm not interested in playing that anymore. They said, well, I'm sorry, but you must do it. And I said, I mustn't do it. I'm not contracted to do it. Anyway, the first scene in that series was the scene you're talking about. I'll come back to that in a minute. But the main scene, having said I won't do it, they phoned me up and said, we've got this wonderful scene for you, Julian, in Series 6. Oh, have you? That's nice. Can I see it, please? Oh, no, you can't show it to you. Because that's the way these days, the secrecy thing in films is so absurd. Anyway, no, we can't show it to you. I said, well, you will keep it to yourselves then, I'm not interested. And eventually, to cut the long story short, a motorbike came round my house with a box in the back of it, which had a key, and the motorcyclist got out and unlocked the box and brought in these pages of this scene, which was my death scene. Which anybody who's seen it will know it's a wonderful death scene. And I had to put the papers back into the box, they locked it and took it away. I rang my agent and said, I'm interested in doing this scene, and I will do it, but only on 2 conditions. Well, actually one condition. I will do it, but I want 3 times the money. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. And you're on to do. So it's a great proof of if you don't want something, you might get it. Absolutely unbelievable. Okay, this scene to which you referred. In the very first series, after about 3 episodes, I went to the writers and said, this is not interesting to me, what you're doing. The stuff I read, my audition pieces, were very interesting. Well, we've done those now. And I see nothing interesting about seeing this boring old fart sitting at a table. Literally, if you've seen television, I've seen the X things on television, there's a farting table. Him sitting there, just and saying stupid things and being insulted. And whenever he comes on, he's insulted. And so I'm not. I really don't want to do this thing. So they invented for me next week, which was wonderful, this idea that I was in fact covering up the fact that I was much more vigorous than people thought. And they got the idea from when I was filming, I might be standing like this, talking with my friends, they'd say act, they'd say turn over, and I'd get down into my position, and I'd do the scene, cut, and I'd stand up again. They got the idea from that good idea that he was covering up. Okay, they gave me a very good scene in the first series, you might remember, when I'm caught in bed with a girl, I'm talking about things to her, she goes out, and I straighten up and do a bit sort of bit of that, get dressed, look at myself in the mirror, go straight again, go to the door, go down again, and go out like this. Very good scene, very good scene. They never did anything about that after that, until the scene which you speak about, which was at the end of Series 5. A wonderful scene where they suddenly came out with, there I am on the beach, and Tywin is fishing, and I've come down with some message, I can't remember what it was, and he turns and he says, I've got you, I've sussed you out. What's the game? What are you playing? What are you doing? And so I'm like this, I get up to my full height, there's no point in not doing so anymore, and I answer him in my straight voice like you hear now, not being the old man, and explain to him that I'm determined to live out my time naturally, that I want a decent burial, and I want a decent memorial service for the service I've done for this country. I don't intend to get killed like everybody else. And this is the reason I'm doing it. And he says, well, okay, fair enough. He still treats me very badly in the scene. He's very insulting, but he takes it. listen to what I'm saying. It seems to be quite interesting. That's what happens at the live theatre. There's plenty of people who have never heard it or heard you doing it before. In a classical play, they're interested to see what you're going to do with it. And unless you're very bad in it, in which case they will walk away like this chap did just now. Obviously, I was very bad in that question. Unless you're very bad in it, they go on being interested and have a personal contact. And that's really basically why I became an actor, because of the communication with other people, which is so vital. And the fact that you're even sitting here now shows that you're interested in that communication between actors, all these actors here, actors and directors and producers, and what they have to say. Sometimes they can be very trivial things, sometimes they can be enormously funny things, but it still registers with you and it makes an impression upon your mind, and you don't ever actually get rid of it. Because you know the mind retains everything in the end, so it's only a matter of getting it out, what's in the mind. And that's why I became an actor. And that's why it's lovely to talk to you now.
Excellent. So we have our gentleman with the mic. I don't know his name, so I'll call him Mike. Just come on to Nick if you have a question, or raise your hand and Nick will come to you with the mic. Now, lady in the front first. Lady right in front.
It's clear about things. I remember that, yes, I remember. Two of those, one the death of Sean Bean. A few scenes before that, they beheaded a horse. Do you remember that? Wasn't that disgusting? It really was horrible. You saw the horse being beheaded. When it got to Sean's execution, you didn't actually see the beheading. Didn't see the sword going through as you did with the horse. Now that was a wonderful taster. Another fantastic taster was, I think, in episode 4 or 5, 6 of the first series. Joffrey had already established himself as the most unpleasant person that's ever been invented in literature. And there's one moment he's standing on the edge of a balcony, and the girl comes to push him over, and the hand comes down on her shoulders and stops it. And she was doing what we all wanted her to do. And you didn't see that, any hint of that, until he was absolutely killed. But they'd given you the possibility, all that, so many episodes before that. A brilliant storytelling, fantastic. My demise was one which I earned, I thought. And the irony of it was, which you, was good, wasn't it? A lot of people haven't caught, why should they? But I'm the oldest character in the whole series. I started off at 104, so I suppose I was 107 by the time the series ended. And I was killed by children. And that's a very nice, that's the sort of thing Game of Thrones is so full of, things like that. If you want to observe them, you could watch it 8 times a series, an episode, and you'll see different things in it. It's so wonderfully detailed. That's enough about that.
That's a great one. I wanted to, before we open up to the audience for questions, I did want to ask you about your background in Shakespeare. And I wonder if you had a favorite character or play in Shakespeare, because I know you're pretty familiar with theater acting, specifically Shakespeare.
Well, yes, I started off at school with Shakespeare, and I had no idea I was going to be an actor. And I did it at school and thought, oh, ouch. And when I got into the theatre, I thought, this is what I want to do. So I managed to get myself as a walk-on actor into what is now called the Royal Shakespeare Company, which is the creme de la creme of Shakespeare producers. And I went to them for 3 years as a walk-on character, and gradually building my parts up to quite nice small parts. And since when I've been in all but 2 of Shakespeare's plays, sometimes in a very small capacity, sometimes in a very important leading capacity. And my favourite role ever was Henry IV in the Henry IV plays. Those are the plays, the history plays of Shakespeare are what Game of Thrones is based on. The whole thing of the struggle for power, and what people will do for power. Who they will screw, who they will kill, who they will torture, who they will be nice to. All those things are in Game of Thrones. They're all it was inspired by those plays. Anyway, so I was in those. I played King Lear, which was not a very enjoyable experience. It's such an agonising journey that man goes through that each night was a bit of a strain. And I was quite glad to get rid of him at the end. I was not wonderful as King Lear. I was all right. I was okay. I pulled it off, but I wasn't one of the notable King Lears of our time. Coriolanus I've always wanted to play, but I haven't. I played the subservient part in that called Tullus Ophidius, which is also a wonderful part, but not Coriolanus. Coriolanus is notable for being the fact that Shakespeare wrote a tragedy about someone who was really horrible. It takes a pretty good playwright to do that. Well, we know he's a good playwright, but that's just another proof that he's a good playwright. He's a ghastly character, Coriolanus, and you're really sorry when he goes. How Shakespeare did it, I don't know. And then how did Shakespeare write Cleopatra? How did he know what it was like to be the Queen of Egypt? Yeah. Anyway, I've spent about, I should think, a third of my whole career in Shakespeare and other works, of course, in the theatre. As I said at the beginning, I'm primarily a theatre actor because that's